Are you crying tonight? Are you feeling alright? I'll tell the world that you were down on your luck. You were one of a kind. One who never give up. Even when they burn a
The power of positivity trumps all evil, and having your own personal yes man can make sense in a world based on greed and power. So as we strive to go platinum in our gaming experiences, we can observe this rule in action and set out to achieve wonders initiated by an attitude immersed in positivity. We have the power because we are the power. Enjoy. Hey everyone, and welcome back to our third PS3 update review video. And I apologize to everyone out there. I know it's been a long time since I've done any update videos for you, but this is the third in the trilogy of PS3 update videos. So, you know, I saved one of the best for last for you. So this is ExBlades by South Peak Games, mature rating there at the bottom. And as I got looking at this cover, I really liked some of the subliminal stuff going on here. And what I mean, there's a little heart by your head right there if you get looking at it, and also a face on the wall over here. So a couple little things I noticed that were really cool, and I do dig this artwork because of that. Initially it looks kind of plain, but when you get looking at it, there's depth here. You know, not so much depth here. This is more like the subliminal message in itself, but good depth in this cover, and I liked it. It was done well. This one is rated mature for blood, suggestive themes, and violence, and does have that a little bit. But you know what? That's kind of what makes these games interesting sometimes. So let's check it out. New official title, ExBlades Hidden Gameplay. When you're not captivated by the main character's amazing backside, you'll be running to the internet for sources on how to progress. It's quite a buzzkill when you're hacking your way through enemies only to realize they aren't going away anytime soon unless you consider a new method of dispatching them. My eyes said yes, but my intelligence said no, when I realized I'd been duped by a blonde with incredible assets. And a direct follow-up to ExBlades, we have Blades of Time. This one's by Konami, mature rating there at the bottom, and another suggestive pose from your main character there on the front. And this one does say on the back, guns, swords, booty, all in good time. So this one is mature rated for blood, language, and violence. No suggestive themes. However, this pose here on the front is slightly suggestive, I would say. Wouldn't you say? So let's talk about Blades of Time. This is another capitalization on the weak-minded. We have a follow-up and slightly improved upon game style, which I like to call slack and hash. Slack because this could have been a God of War clone, but cut every corner possible in the true fashion of slacking. And hash because it is similar to a dish of chopped meat with potatoes, lacking any originality or flair. I do appreciate the developers for trying with the interjection of time manipulation, but again, the whole point was missed when the mechanic fails to perform. Unless you're a collector of semi-rare titles, or an old man with money to throw down for a Raquel Welch-clad protagonist, do yourself a favor and disperse your funds for the real deal. Keeping the trend of fighters here, we come to Blazblue Continuum Shift. This one's by Access Games with the T rating there at the bottom, and one of the easier Blazblue games to purchase because it's not very expensive. I've seen it go for anywhere between $5 to $12 on the internet. So definitely one to pick up if you want to save some cash and you want a good 2D fighter. This one has some blood, language, partial nudity, sexual themes, and violence, which appears to be more than the Blades of Time game even. However, you know, level of content varies from T to mature, so that's why you're getting that. And this one, like I said, is affordable, and it's pretty fun for what you're getting. So we're going to talk about Continuum Shift. This is your thinking 2D fighter in the sense that classic Mortal Kombat moves such as down, forward, square won't give you the best action. You have to think outside that proverbial box of button mashers here. Not to say moves like that won't allow you to beat an opponent, but if you really want the full experience, you may want to take the time to study the movesets. The game comes across with a style that is worth the time to play, offering story mode, challenge mode, arcade mode, and versus online modes. The price is usually in the affordable range, so if you're a fan of these types of plays, press the directional pad down to access eBay, extend arm, and press enter to purchase. And next up, we're bringing you another Blazblue title. This one is called Central Fiction, and this is Axis's 10th anniversary of making games right here. T rating there at the bottom. This is a sealed copy, however, I have played the game before, but I keep it sealed because it is the rare of the rare for Blazblue titles. It is definitely the hardest one to get. This one says the climax of Blazblue, the pinnacle of 2D fighting games, has arrived. I'm digging on it, guys. It was really a well-crafted game, and in my opinion, the best Blazblue of the series. Unfortunately, the hardest to get. But let's talk about this one right now. With our last installment of the series on PS3, this game offers every option as the prior game we talked about, and some extra modes to confuse you when we had plenty of options before. If you're a 2D fighter virgin, it could come across as intimidating initially, but once you get past the shock of the setup, you could very well fall in love with this game. It is stylized to the hilt, with a solid feel and moveset. It holds the #1 spot for the best in this series. With so many game sets in this genre, why not get the best and go with Central Fiction, as opposed to the adjacent options? Next, we bring you a very original and a rare title. You don't see it very often, but you know, it's not as rare as some of the other games I have in this review today, but it's still definitely difficult to find, but definitely in the affordable range as well. So I do recommend you picking this up as soon as possible. Has kind of a Tron feel. This one's made by Ubisoft and it's rated E10 and up. Has the PlayStation Move compatibility. The future is in your hands, and it is really futuristic looking and a really cool concept. Has some mild fantasy violence for the E rating there, but I think we can handle that, right? We're all adults here. Let's talk about Child of Eden. By the name alone, you wouldn't expect Child of Eden to be an on-rail shooter, but lo and behold, here we are blowing away the most beautiful pixels you've seen since the 2015 film, of course. If you're looking for a premise here, open your mind and then put on your thinking cap to protect yourself from the inundation that you'll experience. We're talking about a digital soul that can only awaken through purification of corrupted data. Sounds like a good sequel to Tron, right? And at this point, I would settle for anything if Disney would just make the darn thing. But back to Eden. Whether or not you would like to use your Move controllers or your handheld, you will be eating up this fantasy that will take you to the depths of creativity unseen since God said, "Let there be light." And now we bring you Dengeki Bunko, Fighting Climax. And I do apologize, I probably murdered that, but I don't speak Japanese and I kind of don't want to. So, you know what? I'm going to do my best with these words. T-rated title. This one is a game made by Sega, and choose your own Envoy of Hope. Kind of more of a dull fighting game as opposed to the Blazblue series, but still a worthy contender in the 2D fighter category. This one has some mild language, suggestive themes, and use of tobacco with some violence. Now, use of tobacco, I don't know how they throw that in there. What are you, smoking a cigarette while you're fighting? I think that would make you kind of lose focus. I mean, it would me, right? So, yeah, the use of tobacco while fighting is just, it's out there. Unless it's in the cutscenes, and that's okay, right? Talking about Fighting Climax, this is the game that utilizes a game blender on a Fury setting. Let's list the franchises in this recipe. Choices from Sword Art, Valkyria Chronicles, and Virtual Fighter will be provided as playable characters. This is also the more approachable fighter. Easy to learn and fast gameplay. Backgrounds aren't as lavish, but kept up nicely. You may notice some subliminal Sega-based themes such as Sonic and Shinobi, but don't let that make you forget. You are playing a fighter with a climax worth screaming about. Next up, we're talking about Hot Wheels, World's Best Driver. This one's by Warner Brothers Games with an E rating there at the bottom. And a really cool presentation. I like the Hot Wheels a little bit, so this game was presented very nicely. Has some mild violence in there with an E rating, of course. About Hot Wheels, it provides 24 different vehicles and 4 different teams with specialized missions. You would think Hot Wheels would be first off the line of racers. Unfortunately, when you actually get your hands on a controller to drive, it's equivalent to a hot dog down a hallway for enjoyment. If you like to be frustrated beyond belief, however, there are some really good ideas for challenges. But again, I have to come back to the fact that I'm a control freak, and Hot Wheels dangles a carrot in front of your car that you'll be chasing to your demise every time. And next up, we're talking about JoJo Eyes of Heaven. This is the Japan version, indicated by this little B rating down here at the bottom. This one's by Bandai and Namco. And this one is definitely a rare title. It is an imported game. Hard to find here in the States, North America that is, but very cool nonetheless. I dig it. It's just a cool follow-up to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Probably one of the rarest games in my review today. We'll talk about this one right now. You might be strolling through the aisle at GameStop or a second-hand shop and finding some, if not all, of the previous games I've reviewed, but it's unlikely you will see this one. Now, the question is it worth ordering? I will have to say, if you're a fan of this series, then do order it with haste. If you have the $50 or more, it will no doubt demand you. Between JoJo's All-Star Battle and this one, you will find more content here, including 53 playable characters and a more open fighting environment similar to the Naruto franchise. Still a fairly rare game on PS3 and PS4, and it's a nice follow-up to have in the collection. And then next we're talking about DreamWorks Karts. This one is by Activision with an E rating there at the bottom. Nicely presented on the front. I like all the different DreamWorks characters. You got the lions from Madagascar, you got the Monsters vs. Aliens, How to Train Your Dragon. We got, of course, Shrek over here. So yeah, pretty cool. I mean, it's a nice presentation for the kids. It's got some mild cartoon violence, not too shabby there. So let's talk about this one. The game that needs no introduction, but does need some criticism. We have a DreamWorks branded Mario Kart that doesn't quite rev up my engine. Although it's not a horrible entry, Karts accomplishes the mundane format of cartoon racing without much pizzazz. I would much rather play the original Mario Kart or even Mod Nation Racers because of the sheer scope that they allow you to be creative with. But who are we kidding? It's great for the kids and keeps them occupied while I play Walking Dead. And yet another fighter we're bringing you here. This is the King of Fighters 12 by Ignition Entertainment and SNK with a T rating there at the bottom. Not quite as nicely presented as King of Fighters 13, but a decent attempt at what they're trying to do here. It's got the red label, so that's cool. It's an older title. I'm not liking the presentation as much, but I guess not too bad. Teen for violence on the rating. About this one, this is the predecessor to the most popular and overrated King of Fighters 13, and it's risen from the ashes for our review today, only to be knocked back down into the ashes by our 1-inch punch. Not even Bruce Lee himself would have allowed developers to use his likeness in this go-around. Okay, it's not as bad as I'm making it out to be, but really, the highlights of this game are hand-drawn fighters and fairly smooth gameplay. I guess I'm just angry the game counts down the seconds I have to pummel my opponent and provides little story or extra events to tickle my tail feather. Not a horrible entry, but far from the cream of the karate chop. And looky here, what do we have? Marvel vs. Capcom 2, New Age of Heroes, with absolutely no game inside. Why? Because this is not a game disc. It's a game download voucher that comes with this usually. And it's extremely rare to find in this form still. So this is actually a really cool piece of history of Americana to have and to own. And I really love it. It's rated T for blood, suggestive themes, and for violence. But as you can see, very nicely presented. And what you get with this when you pick this up from the store, and I'll talk about this in a bit, was this digital comics download unlimited. Get a free month. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the codes because it doesn't matter because you can't use them anymore anyway. So there you go. There's the codes for a free game that you can't use. But nonetheless, really cool artwork. And this is what you get when you got this brand new sealed. And let's go ahead and talk about it now so you'll know what exactly I mean by that. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is one of the most authentic ports and unauthentic licensed titles to grace the PS3. What a marvel it was to have this upgraded 2.5D graphics enhanced fighter, starting its fruitful life in Japan and finding its way to Dreamcast in the year 2000. This game was praised by critics and fans of the characters. This, of course, is a collector's edition box set released by GameStop in a physical form minus the disc, but came equipped with the game's redemption code usable on the PSN network until it was pulled off the network on December 17th of 2013 in North America and then on the 19th in Europe when Capcom's license ran out with Marvel. Also, it came with the free month download voucher from Digital Comics Unlimited. On to gameplay. If you were one of the lucky ones who stored this game on your PS3 before it was pulled, you would know how amazing it was for its time. The HD treatment was beautiful, and the replay value is always there. With 56 playable characters on the PS3 and Xbox available immediately, it rivaled some of the best fighters on the scene. I think anyone who owns this realizes that even an internet-based game that's not available anymore with such a huge following deserves a spot in their collection if they are a true collector. And our next game is called Mayhem by Evolved Games, and this one has a E10 and everybody up. I can't quite fathom that with the name, but hey, I guess they made it so that everyone could play. I really love that symbol. That's really cool on there. This is E intended up for violence only. That's all you're getting is some good car crash and action. So, you know what else is really cool about this is they included these 3D glasses with the game. If you have it complete, then you will have these glasses right here. That's what they look like. So very cool addition, and I think in the future will add to the nostalgia of this game. About Mayhem, if you took a comic book and crossed it with an indie movie and then added a dash of nostalgia from the days when 3D glasses were hip, you'd get Mayhem. Not only do you get to crash the cars, but you get to competitively race them. If that's not fun enough, your menus are crafted with artistic grace and just to add to the Sin City / Mad World feel. Also, I was pleasantly surprised by the E rating on this game, which keeps it playable for a wider audience. I have a secret affair with media that looks hardcore but ends up tame and vice versa. The moral of this review is to add this to your collection and immerse yourself into its art direction and presentation like a good comic book, in the vein of innocent mayhem. Next up, we're talking about Monkey Island. This is the special edition collection Monkey Island game by LucasArts. That was what sold me right there. I love that. This obviously is a ported game back from the 90s, I believe. You know, it's not even the North American version, but still really cool nonetheless. It's got some really great artwork on here, and that's what you're getting right up there. Monkey See, Monkey 2. You're getting both episodes there, and it's actually co-produced by Telltale, which was really surprising too, and another huge sale for me. When I saw that, I was on board to play this. So talking about Monkey Island, with special cameo appearances in Uncharted 4, Star Wars Force Unleashed 2, Witcher 3, and many more to mention, we have 2 Amiga classic point-and-click adventures remade on PS3, and with Telltale on board with LucasArts. This was bound to catch my attention. Now, this isn't an amazing trip down graphics lane, but it is a well-produced adventure-style game and has elements of good humor to keep players involved. Only being physically released in the PAL format, this one can be tricky to obtain, but like monkeys throwing poo, it's a hoot and a holler to watch. Next up, we bring you Monster High New Ghoul in School. And if you recall, The Little Orbit is the same publishers that made the Adventure Time series as well, at least one of them. So yeah, I was kind of intrigued by that, wanted to see how they did with this one. This one is rated E there at the bottom. Has some pretty cool artwork actually, but what's also amazing and incredible is that this is rated E with absolutely no reason for it. So there must not be anything at all in this game, right? Well, I played it and there really wasn't. It was pretty tame. It was well presented though. I really like the art direction with this one. Probably because purple's my favorite color, and like purple just is all over this game. So not a reason to love the game necessarily, but let's talk about it. Now, the concept for this game was intriguing enough for me to lay out a little cash for. I also wanted to see how Little Orbit treated this franchise after their Adventure Time mishap. Going into this game was actually moderately fun and had such potential to be a diverse and unique play. Unfortunately, they tripped over their own aspirations just enough to make the game very average. The dialogue was at times entertaining, but I can't see how this game would keep even a little girl happy. Kids nowadays. They really need to diversify to hold them to play a dialogue-driven game, and this one didn't have that. If only they had relocated to Diversity Avenue. With its direction, then we would have seen the new goal flourish. Right now, we're going to deviate a bit from the course of fighters and get into the RPG element of gaming, and this is called Natural Doctrine. This is by NIS America, and a fairly rare title to find. It's got the mature rating, and it's got some really nice artwork on the front, if you can see that. It's just really crafted nicely and presented very nicely as well. Really like that. Mature rating for blood and violence, but not too crazy. There's a couple spots with some blood, but it's just not, it doesn't really deserve that M, I don't feel. I think it's a good game for just about anybody, especially if you like games like Final Fantasy Tactics, perhaps, or Disgaea. This is a good game for you. So let's talk about Natural Doctrine. A turn-based RPG, a tactical RPG, whatever you want to call it. It's Katakawa's first attempt at greatness and a mechanical masterpiece, if you ask me. On a grid-based battlefield that changes and position matters, Natural Doctrine takes some time to perfect, but that time is so rewarded after you've taken the field. I was a huge Final Fantasy Tactics fan, and this layout takes me back to when I had a lot more time and freedom to play these types of games. Let me tell you, if Pluton was this rare on Earth, it would surpass Platinum in value. And this is what you need for magic use across your team. Graphic and art design lack a bit, but I can see where the developers put their efforts. So many options here and so little time. And then talking about our next game, we're going to bring you Persona 5, which has made my top 10 list of favorite games of all time. This one is by Atlus and has the mature rating there at the bottom. I'm so glad Atlus did this, and I'm so glad they gave it a mature rating so they could do what they needed to with it. But this game was fabulous, guys. It was really, really good. I obviously don't recommend it for little kids. As you can see there, it's got some blood, drug references, partial nudity, sexual themes, strong language, violence. Yeah, I could keep going probably even with stuff they didn't even mention. But anyway, it's pretty good, guys. It's something that you really need to experience as an adult. I love the feel, the stylized feel of it. It's just fantastic through and through. This game is a must-buy. Persona 5. Whoa, Nelly. I love when I sit down with a new installment and realize how much better it got than even the prior decent entries. Persona 5 is a turn-based JRPG that blows the socks off so many other games out there. I've never had such fun combining attributes or personas, to those familiar with the game, for the purpose of custom combat. If I was truly honest, it felt a bit like Poke hunting in the Go series, minus leaving my room to do so, and added a stylized system that puts slinging Pokeballs to shame. This alone was a blast, but then you have about 1,000 side quests where you can work, help out fellow acquaintances, you name it. All considerations for you while you beef up your brain at school. So if you want options, you have options. There are literally over 100 hours you could put into this easily if you don't have a real job, that is. I hereby decree Persona 5 is the game of the century for its style and possibly in the top 10 best games I've ever played. Thank you, Atlus, and thank you, Japan. Next up, speaking of Japan, we have Project Diva F, which is another game that I haven't reviewed yet. I actually did review the second one, but I have not reviewed the first one. I do like the second one just a little better, but this one was a really good first attempt, and it broke the gate of these musical types of games. Broke the gate open, that is, and it was awesome. By Sega, T rating there at the bottom. Hatsune Miku takes center stage. Yes, she is very popular over there, and starting to get popular here as well. This is rated T for some mild lyrics, mild violence, and suggestive themes. About Project Diva F, any game I've had to play following Persona 5 has really just made me want to go back to that one, but for the sake of all of you, I put it down long enough to play the first entry in the Diva series. Again, we have a music video game with computer-generated sound effects you control, as long as you hit the right sequence of buttons, that is. This entry was for the hardcore Japanese electronica fan, deviating slightly from the more popular tunes you get with the sequel. That being said, it has a charm, and whether you are a Guitar Hero or a Rocksmith fan, this game takes a seat next to those for a bit of a change in pace. Essentially, the game provides a lot to experience for a full-on Japanese explosion of sound and button matching. And our next game will be Soul Calibur 4, with the added Vader and his apprentice options for you, so that's kind of cool. I really thought that was neat, and it really fit with the flow of the game. This is rated T, Bandai and Namco Games, and it's an older title. It's got rated T for some mild language, partial nudity, sexual themes, and violence. What we all need to progress in our gaming habits, right? So it's a really good copy. I'm really happy that I own this, and I got it for pretty much a little bit of nothing, so I was really happy to pick this one up lately. Once I had a viewer tell me I didn't have enough fighting games, so I think this PS3 review update has answered that viewer nicely, which brings me to Soul Calibur 4. It's a treat to see Vader along with his apprentice grace the screen here. Being a huge Star Wars fan is par for the course, even if you are playing a game of this caliber. The critical finish option is a nice touch where the game was untouched before. How you accomplish your finish is based on armor destruction and adds a new element to fighting. I know I'm making it sound great, but in fact, it really is just an average fighter with some extra flair. Do I recommend a purchase? Yes, if you can find it around $10. No, if it's any more. May the Force and your wallet be with you. So I felt obligated to bring you the sequel to the last game, which is now Soul Calibur 5. Which does have some nice art presentation on the front, and you got to give it that. It's made by Bandai and Namco. It's got the T rating there at the bottom for some mild language, suggestive themes, and violence. But overall, it's presented very nicely, which kind of is what gets you sucked into this one and purchasing it before you play. So let me talk to you about Soul Calibur 5 so you don't make the same mistake I did. This is an example of one of those games that come back with a vengeance and only fizzles out underneath its own name. It does look impressive, more so than prior entries, but so do movies like Transformers, where you just get lost in a sea of effects and lose any emotion attributed to its plot. This game suffers the same fate, and along with its stylization for profit, we get a lack of story. What can I say that is good about this? 10 new character choices, including Assassin's Creed Ezio, who actually has some good movesets, but overall I was disappointed because of its lack of depth. On the flip side of that coin, we have Teslagrad, which does not have any lack of depth at all. This one was really good and very fun platforming type of game. Sodesco, of course, is just fantastic. They always make these original titles that just blow me away. I believe this is one of their first titles, but their artwork, and I'm sorry, this is E-rated as well. Their artwork always reminds me of like the limited run games a little bit, and I just love that feel. I love that style. So this one's really nice. It's rated E for mild fantasy violence. But with Teslagrad, for those of you who hate narrative story games, Teslagrad is for you because it has none. And only Sodesco can pull this off. I guess it's likened to a silent movie minus any written words on screen, so it really had to be executed with grace. It's a physics-based platformer with a free roam setup. It uses polarity as a concept as you progress, and is very well thought out, hence the name Teslagrad. The feel is a throwback to Mega Man and Metroid, but keeps the game original all the same. Its overall tone is aesthetically pleasing with a simple yet effective art direction. This is a title that won't punish you into submission like some platformers. Not to say it isn't challenging, but the orchestration in which it's played complements its development. And it follows the no more, no less needed rule of thumb. And we bring to you another fairly rare title called Under Night in Birth. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, does it? And neither did the game, but still, it was a very good attempt at a 2D fighter. I really liked it. And Axis kicked out some pretty good games around their 10th anniversary, which this one is. It's got the T rating at the bottom, and it's really well presented. I love the art direction it took. It was really well done in so many ways. It's rated T for some language, mild blood, suggestive themes, and violence, but this is a fighter, so you expect that a little bit. About Under Night, though, disclaimer, it will be as easy to figure out this game's story as it is the title. Now that we understand each other regarding story, I was immediately reminded of a Strider while in fight mode, because just about every swing follows with a tracer as you throw down. It's actually not a bad thing, and it adds to the game's personality. This element isn't quite enough to carry the game, but it does help to feel like your moves are causing damage. Otherwise, I did like its art choices, and it felt like it was outside the standard 2D fighter box. Minus the horrific name and jumbled story, I found it to be a fairly average to slightly above average experience. Not a bad attempt by Axis at an original feeling arcade brawl. Next up, we are talking about Up, and this is by THQ, Disney and Pixar too as well. And when you first got that, you were able to get this free movie voucher for the cinema release. That was pretty cool, actually. But yeah, this is a game that you don't find often either. This is rated E10 and up. I guess it's a semi-rare game, but it's presented very nicely, isn't it? Just a lot of good artwork on there. It's great for the kids. It has some animated blood and mild cartoon violence, so it doesn't get too crazy with the violence or anything like that. So yeah, let's talk about Up. Since this review is shrouded in positivity, we will end with a title that simplistically conveys the concept. By the way, this old man can move. Who would have thought playing with a geriatric character would yield any results other than a broken hip? He is more youthful than a Boy Scouts convention. This concept alone gives Up a personality. It is a cooperative platformer from the minds of Disney and Pixar, and a THQ-developed adventure and collection-based game. As much as I wish I could give this a positive review here, I just find myself as a self-proclaimed adult, and this game just wasn't aimed at me. The children, however, can eat this up with the likes of SpongeBob-based goals in mind to collect and to conquer. Unlike Sure Antiperspirant, this game is made for the kids, but lame enough for adults. And while the title is up, the impression is down. So it's come to the final moment of our third PS3 update review, and hopefully we can see how immersing oneself with positive vibes is essential to happy gaming. You'll always have resistance, but how you handle a bad day on the battlefield defines you as a gamer. Good advice is to not venture out alone. A great video game quote once said, "The right man in the wrong place can make all the difference in the world." So bring along your yes man, because you can always use a little help when angry gamers get you down.